Well, good morning and welcome to Talking Baseball Australia Live. My name is Dan Vaughn, my broadcast partner Paul Morgan, waiting in the wings. We're ready to bring you another big show here on a Friday morning, or if you're in North America, Thursday evening. Let's roll the open in 3, 2, 1. Here we go, folks.
It's Talking Baseball Australia. It's baseball updates you'll really love. The MLB and ABL news you want. With Paul Morgan and Dan Vaughn. It's baseball's best mate all year round. From the batter's box to the mound.
And with that, we bring in Paul Morgan, who joins us this morning in a very early morning. I don't say early, but it's early enough for him as he joins us in 3, 2, 1. Good morning to you, baseball's other best mate, my partner in crime, Mr. Morgan. How you doing this morning? Can you hear me? I see you. Do you hear me? No 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 hear me? Odd. I see. Let me try him again. Let me bring him back down again. Paulie, jump back on again real quick because I don't think he heard me there. Bring him right back on in just a moment, but he'll be right back with us in just a second, though. But Big Friday. These waves keep coming at us, okay? First off, we're Talking Baseball Australia Live. Talking Baseball Australia, it's a little venture we do. We get you the insight on the Australian Baseball League and baseball from an Australian perspective. You're probably going, well, why is this random Texas guy from America doing this? Well, I'm being joined by the man who knows the way of the world down under, Paul Morgan in Perth. And of course, we've been broadcasting together since 2012, and a little bit of this venture we do. It's a labor of love, but we're glad you're along. Throughout the show, your questions and comments were always welcome. We will fire them off. As a matter of fact, you know what? While we're waiting for Paul, I'm going to put this on the screen there. If you got something really major, you want to jump on real quick, I'll even open the green room for you. Open the green room for you guys. Let you guys jump on if that's something you want to do. I'm having a little trouble bringing Paul. Let's try him again here. I believe I got him now, though. I got you now. Do you got me now?
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
I
had you on the screen, and you were just kind of you kind of look like me most of the time, just kind of looking around.
No, I couldn't. I couldn't see or hear anything. And the whole thing, it said, "Thank you for joining our stream, and thanks for playing."
Yeah. It's the joke's on you, I guess. It's
I was like, oh, what? I said, I know I had nothing really interesting to say this week, but DV decided to cut me off before the show started.
Yeah, it's like the old cartoon. Remember the old Bugs Bunny? He has a little jerk him off the stage. Or not jerk. He was always Daffy or whatever he pulled off the stage. Anyway, quickly overview for you guys on the show. I mentioned you guys can join in if you want. I'll put that link up again in a moment. First off, the question for you guys, off the top, and you can go to the Australian Baseball League website and you can actually kind of follow along with who signed and who hasn't. But my question for you folks, the fans, the Australian baseball fan, which is a special breed, who's winning the hot stove? Who is winning the hot stove league? And you ask what the hot stove is. That is the off-season league that goes on every winter in the States when the major leaguers are getting signed and traded. Same thing in Australia. We do it in the Australian winter, in the tail end of the winter now into the spring. The hot stove is still going. It's pretty busy. So who's winning? Who do you like right now? If we started the baseball tomorrow, who do you like? Who's the team that has the best roster on paper? Headlines as well. Aces. They're going to be my top pick, I think. They're busy again. Brisbane plans. Some indie news from the States and Liam being Liam. I guess that's kind of the headlines there. And all that. We're also going to chat a little bit quickly on scatter shooting with some plan A, perhaps plan B, and questions and comments throughout the show. One more time, I'm going to give you guys, if you, of course, fire off those questions, but if you do have something really hot, pressing, I'll let you on. I'll open the green room up for you if you really want to join in and you got something big to ask. So first off, I guess the thing is how you doing, mate? I didn't even ask you that. How you doing?
Oh, no, all is well. It's blue skies, spring weather, and baseball around the corner. Registration days for the juniors and whatnot are happening at the moment, and So it's just springtime, and maybe we'll have baseball in the Australian Baseball League. Maybe we won't. No one really knows. Probably the interesting part from, and I guess all sports are going to be in the same part. So interestingly, this week over here, anyway, the National Basketball League announced that their season will start in the middle of January. So typically that season starts in October. So that'll start middle of January to give some of the athletes some of the time to get in the country. As we said off air, DV, there's a lot of Australians stranded around the world at the moment trying to get back home. So it's sort of, it does, the broader question, it does sort of, wonder, with the NBL starting middle of January, is the realistic ABL middle of December? You would think probably not. So I would imagine plan B, C, or D is in the wings, and will be with us soon, I would have thought. Anyway.
Yeah, and we're going to dive in the second part of the show a little bit. What, if you missed it, Mark Reedy of the CEO of the Brisbane Bandits, phenomenal guy, big champion of our league, been around for a long time, pushing that Bandits franchise, and really does a phenomenal job at the top. There's some between the lines things that he said in a letter to the fans in Brizzy that I think that if you pull them out, you can kind of maybe see what plan B perhaps might look like, or C or D. We'll get to that in a moment. I want to jump off with the headlines of the ABL. The Melbourne Aces, of course, we've not really talked enough about them, partner.
Yeah.
And I think that's unfair because we sort of mentioned in passing Alan D. San Miguel as a manager. We sort of mentioned this and that. And they signed this guy, that guy, but all this excitement in Auckland, all the excitement in well, you name the city, we've kind of forgotten to say, well, the defending champions are getting the band back together again, but also they added a huge piece, and I want to talk about that off the top here. Dominik Tomska is the I say right, Tomshay, if I can say it right. I should know this because I've only watched the guy play 1,000 freaking times with the Sioux Falls Canaries, and joining them. He is their big free agent signing. Sioux Falls is playing in the American Association Finals tonight in the States. Game 5 tonight in Sioux Falls. They're down 3-1 in Milwaukee, but a young man that was the part of the All-Star team over there with Sioux Falls, part of the league All-Star team. A guy that this is a guy, and I'm gonna really jump on this signing because this is one of those signings that nobody really is probably quite tuned into because he's not really a guy you would have heard of. But I'm telling you right now, this is a huge deal. If you like the Nate Sampson signing, or you liked having Colin Willis, which we're going to talk about him in a moment, who came over as an import from Melbourne, this guy is a hitting machine. And this is one of those guys, I think about, he reminds me a little bit of John Birdie that played over in Canberra a few years ago. This is that type of player. I don't know what you know much about him, but Melbourne just goes and just gets more depth, don't they, partner?
What I find interesting about Melbourne, what they do so well, and we actually were having this conversation earlier in the week around the fact that, typically what they've done is they've had their Japanese players until December, January, and then they've decided to go slightly differently. So they've gone down the route of these association players. My question more for you, DV, is you look at Nate Sampson, you look at Colin Willis as well, and you look at the latest signing as well. Like, why do they do it differently? Like, obviously the defending champions, we know that the association independent ball is probably where you're going to get your most value for players. Like, how do they go about their recruiting better, and why are they doing it better?
What you're seeing to a very, very degree, Luke Hughes and Alan D. San Miguel both being in the mix, I think that goes a long way. You got to remember, these are two guys, Luke, of course, the big leagues, and Alan has been a mainstay in North American baseball, of course, right now with the Royals taxi squad. Those two relationships are very important. Those two guys in the West, they were very big about getting, I can't tell you how many times we would talk about this on the air, but a player was recommended by Luke or by Alan D. San Miguel or Tim Kennelly for that matter. But you took two of those recruiters out, or Matt Kennelly, take two of them and move them to Melbourne. That's a huge thing right there, because I can tell you how many times I've talked to players and said, tell me about the ABL. And and I might mention, well, the manager here is Alan D. San Miguel in Melbourne. They go, oh, I know him. I played with him, or I played against him, or isn't that where Luke Hughes is? These guys, and as I always say, baseball players talk. They're a close fraternity, and I think you're seeing a little of the culture change from what you saw in Perth 14, 15, 16. You're seeing that in Melbourne, and Melbourne's got a deep talent pool of Victoria. I mean, Victoria's local talent's very deep. I mean, outside of Liam Hendricks, you got Lewis Thorpe right there, a guy like that. I mean, I shouldn't say Lewis Thorpe. You've got guys like that, young, talented guys like that. You've got a deep talent pool. I think you put those two together, you're seeing Perth 2.0 in Victoria, I think.
You are indeed. You got the old internet gremlins going on DV as well.
Did I back out of it? Maddie Swain says, does Perth have any Americans coming this year? No. Do you want to take a stab at that one, partner?
Well, the plan is they got the Tampa Bay guys coming in again. They've sort of made no secret about that. That the Tampa Bay affiliation will go ahead again. Outside of the Tampa Bay affiliates, we haven't heard of anyone from the Johnny Andersons and whatnot. We haven't heard any of those signings yet. Perth's been a little quiet on the signing front, but the plan is to have the Tampa Bay guys in, but. Of course, Stevie, that's very dependent on whether people can get in the country or not. But
and I think, and that's going to be the biggest thing too. Is can they get in the country? That's going to be the biggest thing. Quickly, a couple things too. A good question though, Maddie. You're going to see Rays players, assuming they can get in the country. I'm going to think that you're going to obviously have to get at least one starter, perhaps two starting pitchers, perhaps a utility type guy or an outfielder, a bat. Perth likes to put together. We know Lachlan Dale well. Over the years, he's put together front end starters from Indy or free agents, and then he's also put together usually one big bat at some point, can kind of throw in the mix there, and maybe a utility guy. More on Dominic Thomashay is 29-year-old. He reached AAA with the White Sox as well. He's the American Association 2020 All-Star team. I'm going to put this photo up real quickly here. I just want to give you a couple things. 320, 12 doubles, 4 triples, 10 long balls this year in the American Association. He's part of a very deep lineup with Mike Hart, former Perth Heater, is playing there in Sioux Falls, but it's a loaded card. Of course, both teams are really super teams this year. He's coming down, and again, you're seeing a guy, and this is an interesting note too. I want to tie him back into Australia. He went to Iowa Western Junior College, which is the big conference that a lot of those young guys play at, like Southeastern, which is where Robbie Glendenning played back in the day before he went to Missouri. He went very much like Robbie Glendenning from that junior college in Western Iowa, not the same one, but the same conference, to Auburn University. That's in the Southeastern Conference, and that's where Big Frank went. Frank Thomas went to play baseball and football back in the day at Auburn. Tied to Australia, Ilona Singh, a 6'1" middle blocker from Brisbane, just signed a scholarship to play volleyball. She's a big up-and-comer on the Australian national team, the under 21 national team as well, maybe Olympic hopeful for Australia. She just signed with that junior college a couple of weeks ago, so a little tie into Australia where he went to college at Iowa Western. So I thought I'd throw that little back in. That little tidbit you won't get anywhere else, mate. But
no, that is the tit of the tidbits. But
how about it? How about that? How about that?
So looking at Melbourne, what they've done, DV, answering your question from earlier. Now we've seen primarily Adelaide, Auckland, and Melbourne be the three front runners, and Sydney. Who's won it for you at the moment?
I don't mean to do this with any disrespect, because I think I kind of dished. I don't want to say dished. I want to sort of say I've kind of slept on the Aces. I mean, they had the deepest team, and what I love, we talked about, they'd reloaded last year. I just kind of think we were all kind of, and I'm not for very good reason. I mean, the signings in New Zealand, the signings in Sydney are very good for the league, but you get back to the brass tacks of it, how that roster makeup goes. You got to lug what the Aces have. I mean, they just, and I have a feeling they have a deep pipeline of independent ball players, and they're going to be looking. And of course, they've over the years have brought affiliated players as well. I just like the roster makeup right now. It's going to be, as you like to say, a cracker of a season, but I still think the Aces roster right now, I take the proven track record of what they've got. And if you're Alan San Miguel, you have to be licking your chops going, boy, I got this club to run. Make a lineup card out.
And you'd imagine that D-San would probably pick one or two of the guys he's spending his summer over there with at the moment in the Royals organization as well. So, which is nice. And, nice to see this guy back as well.
Jared Cruz, re-signing with the Aces, 25-year-old. I've always liked this guy. He's one of those guys that goes about his business and just kind of, you don't really notice it until he's not in the lineup card. He's one of those kind of guys. I love this guy. I've always liked him. He is seventh in the Aces history with 144 games played, 210. But I think a lot of that's from early on in his career. Pretty consistent guy. Played a couple of years in the States with the Berets. Signed as an 18-year-old, one of those early young signees as well. But again, part of that deep Victorian, that pool that's very much like I said a moment ago, that Perth 2.0. I mean, it's you got to have a roster and you got to have complementary pieces. This guy's a complementary piece. He's not going to bat, the 3 or 4 hole, but it's a complementary piece, and to get the band back together again.
Well, there's actually unfortunate timing last week, David. About 5 minutes after our show, they announced that Delman Young was back. So
yes, we did. We didn't get a chance to talk about Delman, but I guess we could add that to it. I sort of alluded to it earlier, but Delman Young, you're going to put him right there in that middle of the lineup card, which is 3-4 hole hitter, going to be right there. But here's a guy right here from last year's American Association All-Star Game, a guy that we're really reaching out to. I think we'll get him on the show in the next couple of weeks. But Colin Willis, do you remember the conversation I had with you about him last year about November when I said to you, watch this guy. Yeah. This guy's going to be the best hitter in the league. Just watch this guy. And sure enough, this guy came out of nowhere for fans, but this guy is a go-getter. He's one of those guys, small college guy, went to Purdue, not Purdue in West Lafayette, Indiana, but Purdue in the Northwest Indiana, or out of Chicago area, small school. Battler, went to Gary, South Shore, played a couple years there. Red Sox signed him. Didn't get a chance for MILB season, so he's got he's rested and ready to go. But this guy, you plugged him in the lineup card about midway through the season, playing every day. They couldn't be stopping him in the card.
I've not seen that new kit from the Railcats either.
That was
new Railcats kit.
Yeah, good looking kit, wasn't it?
Look at them trying.
Yeah, look at them trying. They definitely are trying. I love those Railcat kits. They had the coolest uniforms in the ABL. But you get Delman Young back, Connor Willis back. You add another guy in Tom Shea, and you've got you're getting the band back together again. And again, I think this is huge for this ball club. And I guess my other question is, how much will they rely on Japanese imports this year, and will they have to?
Well, and it's possible that they have Lewis Thorpe throwing for them as well. Hasn't probably had as much time with the Twins that he would have liked, and it's possible that he comes down and throws for them as well. And
sure.
So I mean, I'm with you, DV. I think that they're a team, and even last year we slept on them a bit, and they sort of just rolled into January and just rolled everyone from January and just cleaned up everyone. And they're a very good ball club, very well run as well. Very, the owners are baseball people, big time baseball people as well. Very much committed to success, and Melbourne Aces went a long time without having that ultimate success. And I would think that they are definitely. I'm with you, DV. Whilst they haven't had the Ramirez or even the big change for Dylan Unsworth or anything like that, I think they've still put together the best team so far. So it's just and they are deep, as you said, and they've got a very deep pool down there in Victoria as well.
Yeah, and let me throw out Willis too, just real quickly. His numbers last year, just in case you guys missed it. 28-year-old, 520 on base, OPS 1.131, hit 427 last summer in the ABL. Really took the league by storm. Phenomenal guy, runs the base as well, plays good out, plays defensive in the outfield, also hits for power. He's a five-tool guy and a really up-and-coming young man and a phenomenal young man. One thing that I will toss out too, that, I mean, again, the Aces are still top dog. It's easy to say this. They're top dog till you knock them off. But when you start looking at the nuts and bolts of this thing, what they've done, and I hate to, I'm not trying to steal Perth's thunder, but what they've done, be able to reload and reshuffle the deck. And that's something we saw for the years, when the Heat needed a body, they would get somebody would show up on the shores of the West.
Yeah.
Well, what they did last year, when they needed bodies, boom, they were able to shuffle the deck at the right time, and boom. And just, it's scary what they can do. And I think they're phenomenal. And one more thing before I get off them, what fans should know about the organization there, they are phenomenal. They took 2 years ago, 2019 season, or 2019 season, pardon me. Yeah, a season and a half ago. Yeah, 2019. They went on their front office went on a U.S. tour and toured affiliated ball, minor league parks. I can tell you personally, they came to Kansas City, the T-Bone Stadium. I met with them for about 4 hours. They just shadowed me around, talked to my staff, talked to our staff, kicked the tires on what our operation was. And we had a rain out that day. And when we started the game, we got rained out, but they got to see how we did it. And they were doing that at every operation. They went to St. Paul. They went up to Chicagoland. They were in South Bend. They went to all these places, and they were taking notes. And not only just how to build a ball club, but the fan experience, how to treat their fans, merchandise, all that. I can tell you personally that they're making the inroads because they're making the effort as a staff, and I think that's really cool. So I think fans of Victoria, you should be very excited to have what you have in the Aces front office. So I just throw that out there for you guys.
And a couple of big Aces fans on the various ABL fan sites and whatnot. I know there's some discussion yesterday. Small things, DV, but there's merchandise ordered. It was delivered promptly. Things that they've got wrong over historically. That franchise has never really got things right over the last. Certainly the first 7 years, there was always some form of a problem there. But hats off to them. And I just there was. I was going to come back to that point that you just mentioned, DV, because I know how much you spoke about at the time that they spent over there in the US learning the association. And the ABL at the end of the day is that level. And, you look at that team, look what they've added. They've still got Josh Toll, still clearly, in my mind, the best reliever in the ABL.
We didn't throw him out there, Josh. We love that lefty. That guy just throws strikes and gets outs.
So it's just, they're done. They just continue, and I love what they've done. And I just think that's just such a if you're coming in, that's the blueprint to follow. And it is what they're doing, and it's exactly as you said, DV. If you rewind the clock back 5-6 years ago, and you look at Perth, and you start thinking of guys like Mike Ekstrom, Renee Tassoni, Brendan Tripp, these kind of guys that all come over that had played a bit. Tim Smith, these guys like that had come around and they were dominant in the league. And all they're doing is taking what was successful, placing it in the current day format, proving it is still successful, and reaping their rewards.
And I'll throw it again. I keep saying this. These guys talk. I mean, they talk. And it's funny because I use Tim Smith as a great example. When he played in Ottawa or Quebec, I think it was Ottawa, and he came to Gary, and I'd only met him in passing, basically in email. And he played for Perth, and I'd worked there, and I'd missed that year with the visa problem. But he was all raves about playing in Australia and being part of the Heat family. And I think you're seeing the very same thing with the Aces. And one thing to remember, the wins and losses are great. You want to win. I mean, you want to win a Claxton Shield. But you also got to win the fans by little things, the little tick boxes that you got. And you and I both know this, at the gate, how the ballpark looks, merch, food, customer service, ticket value, all the things, on-field things that you got to do. Those are all going to be done. They're ticking all those boxes, and they're not alone there. Other teams are doing it too. And I think you see passion throughout the league doing that, but you're seeing what the Aces are out in front. And I mentioned Mark Rady. We're going to talk about him in a moment. He also tick marks the boxes too. Yeah. But speaking of the Bandits, quickly here, I had forgotten this, but Mitch Nielsen is playing over in the Bundesliga, which actually played a 2020 season. They're still going, but he will be coming back to Brizzy and part of that deep Nielsen family. Boy, I was doing some reading about them a couple of days ago, and I mean, of course, his uncle and his dad. His uncle's a big leaguer. His dad was in the minor leagues. I mean, members of Team Australia, but this is a guy that you've got to have in your league, and a good signing for Brisbane. Having a guy like this, 29-year-old, 11th season. He's closing in, I believe, on the some pretty good numbers. 3 hits shy of the 20th player in the modern ABL with 200 hits. Of course, he played for the Tribe organization back in the day. Mitch Nielsen, they win Claxton Shields for guys like this.
Yeah, well, he was part of that 3-time Claxton Shield Bandits. He was, key piece of it. Good to see. And again, he's just one of those guys, maybe a little bit like Darryl George at the Aces, or when you start thinking those guys, Daniel Schmidt at the Heat, someone like that, someone that you just like to see come back year after year. And, he is very much, he's Brisbane. You think Brisbane, he's one of the first guys you think of. So great to see him back.
Let me ask you this. Your first year, let's rewind the clock, 2010-11-ish. We didn't have this quite yet because we were only in the infancy of the league, but you need these guys. You need these recognizable names that, hey, I'm in Brisbane. I know who Mitch Nielsen is. Yeah. Or you mentioned Daniel Schmidt. I mean, the big lefty. If you're a Heat baseball fan, you know that guy. You may not know him you probably didn't know him in Canberra. You know who Mitch Nielsen is in all these cities. You got to have those name recognition of those longtime Australian stars. That's got to be a huge deal to get the guys like this. We need more like this.
I agree, and I think you got Canberra. Like I think Perkins is your future there as well. Like Perkins is well known, and Sydney had, especially in the early days when they had Trenolchin and D'Antonio and these guys, they had a lot of recognisable names as well. Like they're sort of reloading at the moment. And Steensel, of course, has gone to the Giants. Adelaide, it was there were a bunch of guys there like Tom Bryce and these guys that were just you just knew that they were part of that organisation. The Heat had plenty. When you had the Kennellys, Matt, Tim. And Josh, you had Sam, you had Luke Hughes, you had D. Sam Miguel, you had Cameron Lamb was around, Schmidt was around forever. You had all these guys that were around for a long time. And you're right though, you've got to just keep that consistency going. And as sort of quote unquote free agency happens a bit in the league at the moment, it's just nice to see these guys still staying at home and doing their bit and it also helps junior baseball, because that's a lot of things people don't see is they don't see the hours that they get. Even the Heat right now. I mean, we know that they haven't really announced a lot of players, but you go down to that ballpark at the moment. You got Sam Kennelly, you've got Connor Lowry, you've got these guys teaching the kids at the moment. I know Connor Lowry's doing a lot with the Heat at the moment, and the kiddos have a lot more school holiday programs and these kind of things happening, which is great.
Talking Baseball Australia live. My name's Dan Vaughn, Paul Morgan with you. By the way, questions, comments, fire them away. We'd love to hear from you guys. This is the point of the show that we've kind of gone through the headlines of who signed, and I'm calling it scattership, but I'm calling it the TBA knee jerks. It's a knee jerks. We're knee jerking here, and I saw this. Mark Reddy, who is the CEO of the Brisbane Bandits, wrote a phenomenal piece. If you've not seen it, it's on their website. And I'm not going to read the entire thing here. I'm going to scan a couple of things. But if you read what he wrote, and again, we talked about Adam Dobb last week, very forthcoming guy, talking about the future of the league, passionate about the league. Mark's been this kind of guy too. I remember being in the broadcast position there, and him coming by and saying hi and always dropping by. He's an ambassador for our game in Queensland. There's no doubt about it. This guy loves his Bandits. He's done a phenomenal job guiding them from the old way of doing things to where they are now. Under his leadership, they basically turned themselves into turn this thing around to a solid marketing footing, and what they've done there in Queensland. But he wrote a really good letter, I think, that you guys should see on the website. I'm just going to give you a couple of things, and I want to throw these points out to you. Let me pull this up here, but I'm going to read a couple of things to you from the letter. And these are he basically. I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's a pretty long, not a long piece, but I'm going to give you a couple of things. But basically, he's telling his fans, and these are basically telling fans, hey, here's what's going on. Step away from the ledge. We're going to be okay. Baseball's going to be okay. We're going to be fine. But he talks about, and this is his quote, there'll be some compromises to make sure we continue to deliver baseball because of the nature of the pandemic. We have several options and plenty of time to prepare. So from option A to K, we're everything covered and everything's contingency has been thought out. So my first little knee jerk is he's acknowledging the fact that Plan A, which is right now, when we talked about 3 or 4 weeks ago, could become Plan K pretty quickly, and they're prepared for it. So I think that was the first thing I read in this whole thing. He also talks about baseball's changing. There's been a lot made about 7 innings versus 9 innings, things of that nature. And we talked about this, and he says, let me start by saying to traditionalist, baseball is an evolving game that maintains some traditions, but in no way a game that hasn't changed. In 140-odd seasons of baseball, it's changed each and every decade. He's right about that, and I started thinking back about that interleague play, for example, the DH, no DH, the expansion. And then I realized in 2020, partner, nothing's off the table. So 7 versus 9, I may not like it. We've mentioned that. But at the end of the day, we're living in unprecedented times, so nothing's off the table. And the third thing I'm going to give you, and then I'll let you kind of jump in here. He talks about the 7 versus 9 thing. The idea, and at the back end of it, he says, the entice fans and to take the burden off limited Australian pitching in the face of limited access to import players. That tells me, partner, that not only is the 7 versus 9 inning thing important because of television, but there may be a chance that not a lot of imports get in. You need Aussie pitchers. Thoughts on that?
I think that point is valid in terms of if import pitchers don't get in, they do have to go to 7 inning games for Aussie pitchers. If I was to read the tea leaves, DV, and this is complete hypotheticals, it sounds to me that in one of these options A to K, maybe someone's talking to a broadcast partner, maybe someone's talking about similar to New Zealand, that we're only going to get 7 innings. Maybe someone's talking about a hub, and that's kind of, I would think you would have to read the tea leaves, DV, and say one of the options on the table would be a hub that is 7 innings and it's all broadcast, and so see all of us. And
that leads me to my next point he made, and I'm going to go skip down. He talks about home games, and this is Mark Rady, the CEO and owner of the Brisbane Bandits. Great stuff, by the way, on their website. We believe the safest hub is here in Brisbane. That could mean anything from 1/3, half, or all the regular season games being played here in Brisbane hub. Now, we've already been told that there's not going to be a hub in Brisbane, but there could be a hub in Brisbane. He's telling his fans that. I think that's good news that, again, that goes back to Plan A versus K. Plan A was only Plan A. We may be now to Plan C or D. We haven't announced yet, but he's prepared for a hub in Brisbane, and he told his fans that. Doesn't even think there's even going to be a total lockdown. He believes baseball will be played there. Thoughts on that? That kind of piggybacks what you just said, but is he kind of tell the fans that, hey, stand by?
Yeah, look, it could very well be a hub in. I mean, the one thing the real, I guess if you were to highlight a negative of the hub being in Auckland, outside of the fact that it'd be amazing and great, at some point, the winner of that hub and the winner of the Australian hub are going to play each other. Now, the season doesn't have enough time to have a 2-week quarantine at the back end of it. I mean, people have got to race off get into big league camps and whatnot. So
that's something Adam Dobbs said that last week. Yeah, that's something. Yeah, right.
So look, I mean, Brisbane Queensland have proven with the AFL, predominantly all the games are up there, which has worked, and it's worked for Queensland. But I'm not sure that. I don't know, Dave. I think a lot of it is. I think, yes, there'll be a hub in Australia. I think it makes a lot of sense to be probably in Queensland. It's clearly not going to be in Victoria. Unlikely it's going to be New South Wales. In Queensland, from the eastern states' point of view, it makes the most sense. But so does Adelaide and Perth. I mean, at the end of the day, I think Perth's a safer place to be than anywhere else in the country. But tight borders again, and tight borders in Queensland as well. We know Queensland have had so many issues at the moment, like politically. I mean, they are in a political, storm, which that place is a mess as well. So I don't know, DV. I don't know.
One more thing he said too, and this is really good. And you may have seen the rundown. I really love this. What I'm going to tell you guys. And one thing Mark said, Extra baseball. He tells the fans, I'm going to read the entire paragraph. This is really big. The Brisbane Bandits are dedicated to deepening the Queensland talent pool. To this end, we are forming the Bandits High Performance Squad, our futures, quote unquote. These are young guys aspiring to play on the Bandits' first 25 roster. This squad will be built as a team. Will compete in a 6 to 8 week competition against the very guys in the first 25 roster whose spots they're aspiring to. These games will be included in your Bandit season membership. I love this. I love this. We have the developmental squads every town does or every state does, but to put them in some kind of pseudo competition where you're playing for your job. I love that. I love this competition, and you're only going to. It's like you're only strong as your weakest link, and is your roster strong at the bottom as is the top. And if you're pushing the competition up, if somebody's on your heels, you're going to play better, and the guy behind you is going to play better. I love this. I love this. Am I crazy?
I'd love to see a national 23s. I'd love to see all teams have a national 23s competition as well. As a pathway program. Look, and I think it's been floated a little bit as well. Like even if, I don't know, for example, if Perth don't play, what do you do? Do you put your top prospects into Heat uniforms and throw them into the state league competition? Maybe they're all, under 21, under 20 years old. Andy Kyle gets an opportunity to manage these guys coming forward. Probably makes a lot of sense if the season doesn't go ahead. But no, I think the more pathways, the more, and we've talked about it, we've talked about it many times in the broadcast, but if you take, we know Perth a little bit more than anywhere else, but if you look at Perth now, you look at Ulrich Bialski, you look at Jess Williams, look at these guys who are young. They actually grew up watching Tim Kennelly and these guys. So they're in that wave of ABL again. So I do love it. So.
Question, Paul, sorry, partner. He says, hard to have local talent that work and live in Australia.
Yeah,
that's a challenge. And that's been the ultimate challenge. Yeah, that's the ultimate challenge.
Yeah, and that's why a hub is highly unlikely to work because it's, who is, outside of if you're an affiliated ball player, like how are you going to make that work? I mean, I don't think, unless the broadcast model works and they get enough broadcast money that these guys can sort of, feasibly take time off work. But that is ultimately, like anything in life, it comes back to money, and that Paul's spot on. It's that's
it even works a little bit for affiliated players because only, your first round draft pick, let's say, who signed for, $2 million, whatever the bonus was, and that money in the bank, he might be able to come over. But you've got some guys who coach and teach and who do side jobs. Minor league pay, this just in, it ain't what it's supposed to be. People think minor league pay is big. Now these guys are making peanuts, and that's one of the things MILB's had a problem with in the United States with labor negotiations, things like that. There's no minor league player union, so a lot of these guys who are fringe prospects have to take jobs doing something else, and they just can't job it either. So it's a problem for both sides of the world. But yeah, I agree. There's no doubt, Paul, you're right on there. And this is a long-term goal for the league. You've got to make it viable. And we've said this 1,000 times. And I use Tim Kennelly as an example, and it's an easy one for me. But Tim Kennelly, his career right now is a firefighter, but he's one of the best players you produced on your domestic soil ever. And you need him for Olympics and for World Baseball Classic. You need a guy like that. But at what point is it going to be worthwhile for Tim to put his whole life and family on hold? Because you got to put, and I'm not speaking for him, I'm just saying in general, it could be anybody. You got to put money in the bank. You got to put food on the table. And if baseball doesn't provide that, how do you justify it? It's when I was reading about Dave Nielsen, his 2000 Olympic, the Olympic shot in Sydney, he turned down a chance for a free agent major league contract because, he'd already been paid the big bucks, but he was looking for one more big payday. He didn't take it. He went and played for his country. Now, those stories are not the norm. Those are usually the ones that stand out to you. Most guys, they're not doing that. And it's hard. So at what point do we make it worth our while? That's the question. That's the long-term growth of the league. I think you and I both believe that.
Yeah, 100%. And that goes back to the pathways. That's why Brisbane's doing the right thing with the pathways. But look, I think, and we both know it, I think, the ABL probably got caught. Well, it's not the ABL's fault, but the pandemic probably just didn't happen in the right, they weren't at that development phase where, the broadcast deal was in play. There was money coming in. It's still very much semi-professional. And, but any baseball's good baseball, DV, and I guess
let me close two things here real quickly. He also said, Mark Reddy also said, 50% increase in fans at 25% now, 50% down the road. I thought that was interesting that he feels confident in that. And here's one more thing too. Memberships may be bigger this year than ever. If you're a salesperson in Brisbane and I've seen Melbourne's already run specials, trying to get, some corporate things going, suites and things. If you're in the sales end of things, you're trying to sell sponsorships or memberships, it's never been a better situation, because if you're looking at 50% membership or 50% capacity and members get first priority and you're going to be limited single game tickets available, it is going to be very big for members. It'll be a members only situation, encouraging, if you're looking at 800 to 1,600 fans, being a member, this may be the biggest year to be a member for any team.
I agree. And look, it'd be interesting to see it'll be very interesting to see what teams do to make money this year. Like, I mean, if they're all playing, like, how do they go about recouping the losses? What do they do differently? Are they going to do different T-shirts, different merch opportunities, different networking things? Like, that'll be the interesting part for me. I think it'll just be because as it stands, like, it looks it doesn't look financially great for players, owners, people anywhere, but there's plenty of opportunities, DV, and I'm sure we'll have them here right on old TBA with this man every week as well.
Yes, we will. Let's wrap things up here. Let's kind of go to the scatter sheet we already did. Let's jump into the MLB and Indy real quickly here. Liam Hendriks, he's a closer, so there's times he pitches 4 or 5 times a week. There's times he pitches twice. One of those being this week, pitched twice, but went his longest performance, 29 pitches last night in the A's win, inning and 2/3, his longest outing of the year. 2 appearances, 2 2/3, 2 saves, 3 strikeouts. I'm going to give these numbers again, and every time I say them, they blow me away. His ERA dropped from a 1.40 to a 1.23, pardon me. 3-0 for the season, 11 saves. Here's the number that stands out to me. 3 walks. He didn't walk anybody last week in 22 innings of work. And every time I see this, I'm just, the 13 saves now, I just shake my head and say, wow, this guy's something else.
Yeah, we've got to get him on the show, DV, because I'd just love to know what, I'd love to know, what the difference is, in terms of his routine, in terms of what he's doing. But
he mentioned too. Yes, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
He's just not another guy anymore. Like, he's not another guy. He's an elite player now. Like, he's an elite arm. He's top of the tree, and that's just. I know Luke Hughes. I was sort of looking through his socials, and he's saying, like, a lot of media needs to get around Liam Hendriks and around his story, and. He is not, like, I mean, you're talking about a guy who's just not filling up the numbers anymore. Right. He is an elite guy and one of Oakland's, probably, if not Oakland's most prized possession almost.
If you look at the storylines in the MLB right now, player storylines, the Padres with Tatis, that's a huge story. That kid's phenomenal. But right on the heels, there are a lot of articles about Liam Hendriks. There's one in the Atlantic today. ESPN had one last week. I believe CBS Sports had one as well. The Atlantic piece was very good. Last night they were discussing him. He had never pitched in Denver. Pitched at Mile High last night against the Rockies. He had some trouble, according to the San Francisco Chronicle, that he had some trouble breathing. If you've ever been to Denver, I don't know if you guys have ever been to Denver, but Mile High City is that. I can tell you right now, being at sporting events in Denver, especially for climbing up the stadium to the higher deck, you start to get winded, and it's a different elevation there. It's a high, the foothills of the Rockies, and you can get faint there. You can get pretty winded easily. He never pitched there. He had some issues there last night, but did get the save. But he's getting coverage, and I would say outside of Tatis, probably the other guy that's getting a lot of coverage, and I think the White Sox story is a pretty good one as well. That's kind of a good story. But in general, those are kind of the headlines you're seeing besides the COVID and the possible postseason stuff, which we're going to jump into really quickly here. Your thoughts on the MLB? I'm excited. There's going to be a World Series in Texas.
Yes.
Woo! Yes. Baby. Yeah. Oh, wait. The Rangers aren't going to be there?
No. Well, you'd think by that time you might get some fans in there. I know last week they had Kansas City Chiefs, of course, in the NFL, but I did read an article this morning that someone had COVID at the game, so not sure if they'll shut the fans down. The Browns are playing them in. I think the Browns may have fans going to their game. I'm not sure. I have to double.
The Battle of Ohio. The Battle of Ohio, folks, coming up shortly.
Yes, and that could be all she wrote for Baker Mayfield if they lose that one. But like I love the fact. I mean, that stadium, it would be the best stadium in baseball right now because it is brand new. Great that they're sort of moving to the hub. I don't know, I think this, I really engaged in the NBA. I'll be honest with you. I engaged in the NHL. I felt baseball had an opportunity to do something different and still really hasn't. So, I mean, I'll be interesting to see what happens in the postseason, whether it's a little bit more exciting than what the regular season has been.
Yeah, 8 teams each league, so 16 make it. Wild card begins a day for my birthday, which is 2 weeks from now, or 2 weeks from Tuesday. Then you got here's what it's going to break down. The World Series actually begins on the 20th of October. But here's your locations. LDS, Globe Life Field, and Minute Maid Park in Houston and in Texas. More on that in a moment. ALDS, Petco Park, beautiful place. And Dodger Stadium. Love that place. That's in the West Coast. And then the NLCS, Globe Life, and then the ALCS will be in San Diego at Petco, World Series at Globe Life. One thing to remember about this, too, if you're going to do a bubble and a hub, and assuming let's just say Chicago and the Dodgers, let's just say. Well, equidistant almost, and the Texas is smack down the middle. Chicago, it's easy to get to. You're not going to have any kind of crazy snow weather or anything like that. You got a roof, travel. You've got it all right there. So it's a good location to get to, but it definitely is a different year. It's also a different year too, and I didn't have any video on this, but last night the Cubs game with the Indians. Did you see this? The drone. We're living in a world of drones, partner. The drone interrupted the ball game. They had a drone delay, so we've had COVID delays and drone delays. Only 2020, mate.
I need to that. And DV, just looking at the MLB postseason, most as you said, the Dodgers and the Padres and the Astros will have their field, and they'll probably make the postseason. The Power Rangers, though, DV, probably the only team that they're not going to make the postseason. But
yeah, well, they had they did get a 1-0 win over Houston last night, but I mean, yeah, they're probably going to finish last, and oh boy, it's tough. It's tough. Over the American Association, too. I want to get this up for you guys too quickly here. American Association playoffs. I mentioned earlier. We were talking about that earlier, but their playoffs are going on tonight. They start in about 5 minutes. But a guy that a lot of ABL fans will know a little bit about had a very big year as well. The Adelaide Giants, Mikey Reynolds, named the Association 2020 All-Star Team. 30-year-old outfielder, spent most of the season with St. Paul at 332, 18 doubles, 4 triples, 7 home runs, 20 RBIs as well, 36 runs, 54 ball games. But congratulations to Mikey Reynolds, a name that a lot of folks know in Adelaide, but it's good to see a guy get that. The video's kind of freezing up, but whenever you got these independent guys, because again, what do I say, partner? These guys talk, and it's good to have a guy like Mikey Reynolds sharing the greatness of the Australian Baseball League. But Reynolds maybe that part of that All-Star team. Let's see if there's anybody else. Malcolm Krause, I mentioned this on Twitter this week. Chicago was named Co-Defensive Player of the Year. Of course, played all around the ABL as well. But very good to see that. So you see guys like that, and but always a plus when you've got MLB, and I'm sorry, ABL guys. I'm looking down the list here of other guys that may have made it. Yeah, at the moment, but at the moment, no one from the ABL on that all-league team, but just but again, Reynolds was the guy and had a very good year at the St. Paul Saints. Congratulations to Mikey Reynolds. And boy, I sort of think that that kind of wraps it up. What your final thoughts on the week that was here on Baseball's Best Mate, Talking Baseball Australia Live? Final thoughts for you as we roll into the weekend?
No, I think it was probably more quite the stove wasn't quite as hot this week, but. Look, I'd imagine from what I'm hearing around the traps, there's a few meetings going on the next day or so, just in regards to Plan A to K. So I'd imagine next Friday's show, DV, will be an interesting one, and look forward to doing it again next week.
Yes, we will, and we will be announcing a couple things. I've almost finished with all the tweaks on the website. That'll be up. You can follow us on Twitter, where it's the graphic will be at the end of the show at Paul Morgs, Morgs, and at Dan Vaughn Jr. and TBA Australia, or TB Australia is where our Twitter spot is. Of course, you're watching us live on Facebook, and we're glad you guys do. We get any breaking news, we give it to you. Upcoming, I've reached out to a couple of folks in no particular order, but we were looking to getting a couple of executives on from the league, a couple of imports, and a couple of Australians. We got a lot of things going on, a lot of moving parts, and we're kind of waiting around to get the other moving parts as well as we wait to see how things shape up. But partner, thank you very much as always, my friend, and I will see you next Friday, same time. Same. You like this 7 o'clock start? By the way,
it's a good time. 7 a.m.
Can I tease something too? Is it okay if I kind of let the cat out of the bag that we might be doing some other sports talk? Is that possible? Is that
yes?
So we maybe tease that.
Yeah, we're going to broaden out a bit into as NFL rolls around, and and NBA, NHL, because you're Dallas Stars in the Stanley Cup Finals, which is exciting for all the people in Dallas as well. So we'll talk a bit more about that. And
I should have worn my Stars kit. It's in my closet. I should have it on. Yeah.
Looks great though. That the Stars could win the Stanley Cup. I mean, I think Tampa Bay will have something to say about it, but the Stars could win the Cup, folks. But it would be awesome.
Yeah, and I will say this again. And this is not a hockey show, but is there anything better than playoff hockey? Is that the best playoff sport?
I love it, and it's so annoying because I'm a Toronto Maple Leafs fan, and they always bow out early, and but oh boy, I was hot on that this year. Then the Leafs lost as per usual. Jumped on the Canadiens, the Montreal Canadiens for a while, my wife's team, but they lost as well. So anyway, it was.
Well, I do it. Yeah, what I'm trying to show you guys, we can actually chat about other. We love ABL, we love baseball, but I can't tell you how many conversations, and you and I text back and forth daily. And it's not about the ABL, it's about sport in general, and it's all about the Browns or Cowboys or
the Browns come shortly. The
Swans or St. Kilda or something. We're always doing something. So all good. But hey, partner, best to you, and we appreciate you letting go. And I'm going to say bye to everybody else as well. There he goes, Paul Morgan, joining us from the beautiful West. I say this to all my shows. I have a lot of shows. I do a happy hour show on my personal Facebook page. I say this every day, every time I do it on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And I've been saying this to our T-Bone faithful. 2020 is a crazy, crazy year. I mean, it's the year. It's the Groundhog Day. It's March 1st all over again. It's a weird year. And it doesn't matter where you live in the world. It's a weird year. It doesn't matter if you're in Australia, Texas, Service of the Sun. It's a weird year. And what I keep telling folks when he firing up those Saints, I forgot you like the Saints too. I'm suffering Swans right now, but they've been good to me over the years, so I shouldn't say it too bad. But what I keep telling folks is it's a weird time, weird years, weird times at all. And what we need more than anything else this day and age is lots of love. So I give you guys virtual hugs, empathy, care. We need more of that, more love. And let's be better tomorrow than we were today. Let's be better at everything, not just citizens of wherever we live, but human beings, fans, whatever it is we can be, because we need more love this day and age. So please be kind to each other. Let's try to just be better. And let's be ready for when this thing sort of gets back to normal. We'll be ready to rock and roll again. But again, thanks for joining me. Thanks to Paul Morgan. Thanks to you folks for stopping by. If you drove by and said hi, great. If you stopped by and watched the whole show, great. If you're watching on replay, great. Again, your questions and comments, we loved them. Let's see here. What does she say here? Oh, okay. Next year, so your new beau. Okay, all right. Hey, Wendy. By the way, Wendy. Real quickly, Wendy. Just before I close, I'm drinking this iced coffee made out of an espresso machine, which you turned me on to in the West a couple of years ago. So, what for an espresso? You're the first person I knew had an espresso. Thank you. Nespresso thanks you. George Clooney thanks you. The poor man's George Clooney thanks you. Okay, enough of that. Let's put that down. Let's roll the close. Again, thank you guys. Much love. We'll see you next week, same time. Again, our show is on at 7 a.m. in Western Australia. Adjust your timepiece in the West or in the country of Australia, wherever you are. Here in North America, 6 p.m. Central Daylight Time, which is Texas time, the only time there is, right? Adjust your timepiece accordingly. We'll see you guys next week on Talking Baseball Australia Live. Baseball's best mate. Let's close with the close, the best close in the game, right? Here we go.
Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jacks.